When a company grows past 20 people, something predictable breaks. And it's not because of your talent. It's not because of the people that you hired or your hiring strategy. It's not due to the effort that you or your team are putting in. It mainly has to do with coordination. And unfortunately, it's something that most owners just don't see coming. So a good way to look at this is it's a simple math problem. As you start to grow, you get to 10 people, most coordination is verbal. You can walk over to your coworker's desk, you can walk out and check on your manager and make sure that they're doing things properly. You can correct things in real time and usually not have to worry about them too much. But this usually starts to break down once you hit about 15 to 20 people. That verbal communication and verbal handoff just, it doesn't work as well as it used to because there's just too many handoffs occurring. And the way to look at this is about 10 people or so, you have about 45 handoffs or 45 things to coordinate. When you get to 20, that number increases to approximately 190. And then you hit 30. Now, well, you're well above 400 handoff coordinations. The reason for this is it's not a linear growth when it comes to handoffs within an organization. It's exponential. What that means is it compounds over time. And a lot of businesses tend to incorporate better communication tools, better coordination tools. And while that does help to move the coordination along quicker, it doesn't actually solve the root problem. So what actually breaks, right? Ownership clarity, understanding who actually owns each part of the process. Decisions, who owns making the decisions on each one. When something does break, what are the proper escalation paths to get it corrected? Accountability across handoffs tends to fall apart as you grow. And that's why you need to really focus on establishing them. Unfortunately, a lot of business owners tend to get this part wrong. They add additional software, right? They add more tools on top of what they're already doing to try to help mitigate some of the issues they're running into. They add meetings to get clarification. In my experience, I've been part of that, where, oh, it's not working properly, so we need to be on a meeting every single day to talk about it. Well, meetings can help to clarify what's currently going on and get an action plan together to correct it. But in the end, it doesn't actually fix the problem. Another thing I've seen is we add more reporting. You maybe already have a dashboard and now you have a second, a third, a fourth. And at some point you get to it and you have over 100 different dashboards you're supposed to be paying attention to. And don't get me wrong, I strongly believe in data. Data should drive every decision that a business owner or a corporation makes. The issue is when you have too much data or too many dashboards to look at, it's quite daunting and confusing. And then what's it do to the data? It renders it almost useless. The issue is that a lot of owners, a lot of operators, a lot of leaders think that it's a technology issue, but it's not. It's a systems problem. So where does AI fit into all of this? And a lot of business owners are trying to figure that out. And there's a lot of complexities to these new AI systems that have been coming out. And it's hard to know exactly where you're supposed to fit them in. A couple things that you need to remember is, first off, one, it doesn't fix an ownership problem. AI coming in is not going to tell one person or the other who's supposed to own that outcome. Two, it accelerates what already exists. If you have a bad process in place, it's not going to get any better. It'll probably make it worse. When a workflow is clean, it helps to reduce emergency responses, right? It helps reduce the triage efforts that goes into fixing them. And it also helps increase your response speed. When a workflow is messy, it's going to scale the confusion on your team. It's going to make it even more complex than it was before. If you already have 7 layers to a process, and now we're going to add AI as a new layer to it, you're adding another level of complexity. Another thing that somebody has to figure out when something goes wrong. Your root cause analysis needs to be performed prior to AI being integrated. But what does this all mean in the end? AI in that kind of situation with messy inputs is just going to create more chaos. And that is why the process comes first, always. Let's take this from an operator's perspective now. Anytime you look to automate any type of process or workflow, you should be going through a checklist. What does the checklist do? It just honestly is going to make sure you're ready for it. So first, it starts off with mapping your workflow, mapping the process, truly understanding end to end what actually occurs. You do this so you can identify the friction points, identify where things stall out, where the greatest improvement for AI can actually help to keep things moving forward as opposed to running into issues and increasing coordination. You need to define ownership. When it comes to automation, when it comes to workflows or processes, accountability is key. And you cannot have accountability unless you have owners established. So for every single point of your processes, you need to be establishing who owns that process and who owns the outcome coming from that process. You also need to document your handoffs. If the process goes from team to team to team, you need to document each time it moves from one team to the other. For example, I see this a lot in field-based teams. What happens is the sales team at a company will get the agreement signed off by the client. Now we have to move it over to the field. That handoff in between there can be very complicated. There's a lot of different things that come into play that not every team is aware of. For instance, let's say you're a contractor. The sales team sells the quote to the client. They sign the paperwork comes back. The sales team now needs to move that over to the ordering team. The ordering team needs to order all the supplies that are going to be needed for it. The permitting team is going to have to go and pull permits where needed. We're going to have to coordinate field crews based off of capacity and skill set. Then, and only then, once all of those are true and the parts or supplies are delivered to the site, can the crew actually begin working. And that's not saying that weather doesn't play any part in that. Rain could mess that up and delay it even further. These different points of handoff from team to team to team is where the friction lays. And this is where you need to make sure that it's mapped out correctly. And the final and probably most important part of this process is determining what guardrails you can use and build into the system. Why should we need guardrails? AI is supposed to be this amazing technology that handles everything. Well, it is true in some cases, but you have to remember that it is still a system, it is still software. There are going to be issues, mainly with the fact that we have edge cases with everything that we do. Sometimes things go exactly as the process is mapped. Other times, there's things that break. Go back to the example I just gave with the contractors. What if the supplies are delayed? What if a previous job runs over from what its determined schedule was, and now we have to push the scheduling out of the new job? There's a lot of edge cases that come in here, so you build guardrails to handle those exceptions. If it doesn't survive production, it doesn't ship. Let me close with this. Scaling does not break companies. Undefined coordination does. And if you're seeing this with your company or the company that you work for, don't start with AI. Start with the workflow.